Two North Korean agents posing as Japanese tourists plant a bomb on board a Korean Airlines flight headed to Seoul. Soon after they deplane at a stopover, the bomb explodes, killing 115 people. The capture of 25-year-old Kim Hyun-hee is a sensation. When asked why she did it, Kim Hyun-hee claims that she was brainwashed from early childhood to worship and obey the great and dear leaders of North Korea. To many, this sounds far-fetched. But to those who have experienced North Korea's system of indoctrination, it has the ring of truth.
어렸을 때 진짜 유치원 때부터 그런 걸 배워요.
In kindergarten, we start learning about Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung's birthdays. On those days, they give candies and other gifts, and there are portraits of them. And then we bow in front of them and say, "Thank you, General Kim Il-sung." And then we take the gifts.
As I grew up, we learned that the U.S. is the American imperialist wolf. We were taught that American missionaries came to Korea, and they committed all kinds of barbarous acts. And so if somebody stole an apple, then the missionaries caught the child and then burned on his forehead the word thief with acid. So people in North Korea think Americans are cannibals. And young children, when they learn this stuff, they think it's real history.
I didn't know anything about the outside world. I thought North Korea was the best place in the whole world, a paradise.
If you are brainwashed into thinking that you are living in the world's best country and you have no alternative sources of information, then it is much more possible for the dictator to control you.
What Kim Jong-il fears most is his people getting to know the outside world. As people get to know about the outside world, he will come crashing down.
As the 1980s end, the Soviet Empire begins to crumble. Communist regimes throughout Eastern Europe are toppled. The Berlin Wall is torn down. And finally, the USSR dissolves. Yet North Korea seems impervious to this turning of the tide. In fact, Kim Il-sung uses the collapse of communism elsewhere to further rally support for his ideology of independence.
The North Koreans did not see Kim Il-sung as repressive. He was always held up as the heroic leader who was fending off these evil influences from outside, and that only by supporting him fully could the North Koreans win full independence.
Increasingly isolated in an ever more hostile world, Kim Jong-il, now head of the military, looks for options to ensure the security of his father's regime. He turns to a nuclear weapons program begun in the early 1980s. Despite Kim's denials, U.S. intelligence has confirmed its existence. It will soon lead North Korea to the brink of a full-scale war with the United States. On the morning of June 16, 1994, President Bill Clinton calls together his top advisors for what amounts to a war council. Plans for the deployment of a massive military force to South Korea are on the table. Satellite photos have revealed compelling evidence that North Korea is attempting to build a nuclear bomb.
We were preparing for the possibility of war in a very serious way, planning, first of all, for a strike on the nuclear complex, but secondly, for the war that could well have resulted had the North Koreans launched an invasion of South Korea. That all looked very, very real to us at the time.
The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 is the most dangerous moment the world has seen. I think 1994 is the second.
In fact, Secretary of Defense Perry was briefing President Clinton in the Oval Office on a reinforcement plan at the very moment that former President Carter, Jimmy Carter, called President Clinton from Pyongyang and said, hold on, I've been talking to Kim Il-sung, and maybe there's some negotiated agreement that can be reached.
President Carter has gone to Pyongyang to try to negotiate a diplomatic solution to the crisis.
It is now past midnight Friday morning in North Korea. And
he appears on CNN to announce his achievement.
President Kim Il-sung has committed himself to...
Carter saved Clinton's bacon because the Clinton administration had the idea that pressure is the only way you can deal with a problem like this. They had no understanding of North Korean psychology, which is that simply made them more determined to resist the pressure and show that they would not be cowed down by the mighty superpower.
Carter has averted a military showdown. In exchange for oil and other sources of energy and the eventual normalization of relations with the United States, the North Koreans agreed to freeze their nuclear program. But while the terms of the agreement are being negotiated, an unexpected event rocks North Korea. Kim Il-sung suddenly dies of a heart attack. The shock is felt even by those aware of his abuses who have escaped to the south.
When Kim Il-sung died, I wept. I really mourned. We couldn't believe it. He seemed immortal. Many died from excessive mourning and weeping.
I felt, okay, this is the end. We are finished. I thought we wouldn't be able to carry on without Kim Il-sung.
The new leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, lacks his father's charismatic command. Many predict that his government will soon collapse, but he is determined to retain power at any cost.
This is a man for whom regime survival is fundamental. And so he will do what he needs to do to stay in power in terms of the control over his people, the lack of human rights, and some of those things are quite horrific.
The national security system has been strengthened under Kim Jong-il. The political surveillance expanded. In the past, people were taken away, imprisoned with discretion, but now they just don't care. They openly pick up people and then put them in prison, and they disappear without leaving a trace.
Many disappear into a system of prison camps, hidden between the mountains near the northern border. The only known photographs of the prisons themselves are satellite pictures. These sketches were drawn by former prison guard An Myung-cha.
I was a prison guard for 8 years, and I saw brutal stuff. Think of Auschwitz during World War II. In Auschwitz, they specialized in killing people fast. In North Korea, they kill them as slowly as possible. They told me that the inmates were political criminals and disloyal, so if they attempted to escape, we could shoot them to death.
In 1994, An learns that his father has been overheard criticizing Kim Il-sung. He knows he will have to escape North Korea or face dire consequences.
I had done nothing wrong. My father was branded as a traitor, and then he was killed. My mother was also accused of being a traitor and put in prison. My brother was killed too. So I had to escape somehow, even if that meant death.
The Duman River marks the border between North Korea and China. It is patrolled by North Korean agents who often shoot to kill people trying to escape. After several attempts, An makes it safely to the other side. Others are not so fortunate. Despite the risks, by the mid-90s, an increasing number of people attempt to flee North Korea, not only because of the growing repression, but primarily because of the country's ever-deepening economic crisis.
They're in economic trouble, partly because they don't run their economy very well. But by the mid-90s, you then have a series of natural disasters, floods, etc., that lead to serious famine.
But these tragic conditions do not deter Kim from extravagant spending on his vast military forces.
He starves his people at the expense of providing for his military. 30 to 50% of the North Korean gross domestic product goes to the military.
In 1998, North Korea launched a rocket over Japan. It created a huge outcry, not only because it went over Japan, but because, unbeknownst to our analysts in advance, it turned out to be a three-stage rocket. If that three-stage rocket had been successful, which it was not, it fell into the sea, it very soon could have reached the continental United States.